Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Inspired Action Life podcast. I'm your host, Karen Baldridge. And today we are going to continue with our series that I've been highlighting, Success Leaves Clues. And the reason I'm doing that is because everybody loves a good success story. And I'm digging up people right and left, people who are doing what most of us wish we were doing, or most of us were aspire to do, but we're too afraid to do. And nothing is more motivating than finding someone who says, forget it, I'm doing it. I don't care what the fail rate is. I don't care if anyone says, oh, you're crazy, whatever. This is not about that. This is about people following their guts, following their hearts, and saying, I know there's more out there for me. So I just feel like it's super important to highlight or put a spotlight on these people so that all of us know, like, hey, we don't have to be so limited in our thinking and so limited in what's possible for us. And it just makes it a little easier when you see regular people doing extraordinary things. So today I'm very super excited. I'm going to be kicking off the next season here with somebody that I basically have been following on Instagram and decided that I needed to talk to him. His name is Mark Minard, and some of you may already know him. He has a top 100 podcast on iTunes, Elevating Beyond. So some of you may already be subscribed to his podcast, and I hope you are. It's phenomenal, amazing guests, very engaging content. You're going to, not regret any time you spend listening to that, because I found it inspiring. He's also a best-selling author, a speaker, and most importantly to him, I would say, would be the fact that he's the founder and CEO of Dreamshine, which is an organization that helps develop people with developmental disabilities. He's got a whole campus that caters to them, kind of like a camp-like setting. And we're really going to get into that as the interview goes on, because I think that's fascinating. And that is also close to my heart as well. So I can't wait to hear about that. But the crazy thing is where he started to where he is now. And this is the reason I'm talking to him today, because it wasn't like an easy start, like, oh, my dad had this business and I just jumped right in. And again, that's really great if that is you, but most of us, that's not us. So we kind of have to make our own way, especially when we're trying to be entrepreneurs and things like this. And this guy is killing it out here. And so take some lessons from what he's going to tell you today. Get your notepads ready, because I know I am. So if you see me looking down writing, I'm taking notes. So anyway, without further ado, I am going to hand the mic over to Mark to tell us his story. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Karen. Thank you. And to all your awesome listeners, it's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Well, it's an honor for us to have you. And I just couldn't wait to talk to you. And you were so kind about agreeing to come on my podcast, when here you are, a top 100 podcast, and I'm random podcast life coach lady. And you were cool enough to jump on board with me for now. And I appreciate that.
Oh,
And so
absolutely. I'm
I know your
happy
time
to.
is valuable. Plus, you have a book coming out. So I know you're doing some stuff behind the scenes with that crazy life. So can't wait to talk about that. But before we even get to all your awesomeness from what's going on right now,
Crazy
I would
life, crazy
love for
times.
you to
Sorry.
start from the beginning of a little bit about your story and your background, and how the events of your life unfolded that you decided there has got to be more. There is no way I'm accepting the status quo. So I'm going to let you take it from there.
Sure. Yeah. And also earlier too, Karen, when you were mentioning, it's like, it's great and so important, because before I was woke up in a jail cell, which, yes, you want to keep listening to hear where that
Oh, keep
goes. But
listening.
before that happened, I had that mindset of thinking like people that are like successful must have been born that way, or they must inherit the business from their parents, or it was given to them, which, as I've continued to build my own business over the years and get to know a lot of other business owners, pretty much all of them have been self-made and come from all different ethnicities, environments, economics, hardships, ups and downs. And even when someone had something handed to them, it sometimes there's a whole other level of failure there because the parent has been so successful. They gave their kid everything except what it took to make them successful,
Yeah.
which was that
Good point.
drive.
Yep.
So that's like always something, just a little side note that I try to like keep in mind too. But yeah, so going back to my story, um kind of to sum it up, like after a bunch of stupid things and broken victim mindset, I managed to graduate high school early. I don't know how. I had with like a really low GPA. I wasn't
How
even
did you do that? That's another podcast. Like, how does
right.
one manage to
Right.
do
I
that?
know. And and I wasn't planning on going to college. I was always working since I was like 15 and a half. I had my first job at Taco Bell, but
The bell. I like it.
I was always working, but I was just hanging and doing stupid stuff, involved in drugs, selling drugs, just living in a trailer with two other
Wow.
guys. I think at that time I was a cook at a Harley Davidson diner
Oh my.
in a in a little town
That is
called Grand
crazy.
Junction, Colorado. And so yeah, like I just woke up in a jail cell, but at that time I didn't know where I was. And I remember like it was, and I always explain it like this too, because I don't know if I was dead or what, but it was just like blackness and like boom. And it was like I just fell into my body. And I just remember like taking like like a gasp of air, like
Yeah,
I was
like the
like coming
life
up
comes
out of the
back into
water,
you
like
somehow.
and then
Boom.
yeah. And then I like when I woke up, I could just feel like the cold cement under me because I was lying on the ground. And I just looked over and I saw this guy with this huge beard that was a grown man. And I'm just like, where am I? And then like someone opens the door and a real firm voice yells my name. He's like, Mark Minard, step outside. And I realized like kind of groggily walking over, like, I would think I'm in a jail. What's going
What
on
the heck?
here?
Yeah.
So he sits me down, takes my mug shot. That's like when my face appears on the screen and I'm looking at it and I'm like, who the heck is that? Because
What
that's
in the
not me. Because the
world?
face was all beat up. I found out later on my left eye socket had been fractured. My jaw was broken. So the picture on the screen was like me, but the whole left side was just a swollen
Like
bruise.
the Elephant Man. Like, who is that?
Right.
I mean, what is
And
it?
I'm still kind of like trying to figure out what's going on while I'm there. Then I realize it's me, and then the freaking pain starts like
Oh,
really kicking
yeah.
in, and I'm like, oh my God. So so from him and the witness reports and stuff, I found out that I just was so messed up driving, doing all kinds of things, blacking out all the time. And that night they have a place called Wiener Schnitzel in Colorado that's open like 24 hours.
Of course.
And
Where else would you be? Yeah.
my roommates actually took me home from like in the daytime because I was so like out of my mind, and we don't normally like take each other home.
Yeah.
They'd be like laughing and like pouring more shots down my throat and stuff.
Oh,
Somehow I
God.
managed to
Hard
wake
life.
up, right, and like crawl to my car and drive. I got there, and the only memory I do have is like I was parked at the Wiener Dog drive-through, like waiting in line to go, and there was just this giant pickup truck in front of me. And so from the witness reports, like I was just 17 and I apparently I just like passed out at the wheel. And so my car just started going and just briskly bumped him because I couldn't have been like but 5 feet behind him.
Right.
So my face didn't get smashed in from
Yeah.
a
So what's
car
the rest of
accident.
that story? So
And
how did the face get mangled from
so
this?
yeah, here's the fun part. So this guy that I bumped into was he was 37 years old and had warrants out for his arrest for assault in other
Oh,
states.
oh, good. Okay.
And
Sounds
he opened
good.
the door and they said I just like laid there already like, hey, what are you doing, man? And he just had a field day on my face. And
Oh my my God. Okay, now I wasn't expecting that twist of the story. I thought maybe you had gotten in a bad
Right.
accident, you know? Oh my God.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that like I remember I hadn't talked to my parents for a while. They picked me up in jail. My mom was crying,
Of course
of
she
course, seeing
was.
my face. I tell like my dad just wasn't really showing a lot of emotion because I had just put them through so much crap over the years. And I had good parents, by the way, Karen, too. I don't A lot of people I've had on my show and stuff have had way crazier upbringings
Yeah.
than I did. And I just kept having this stupid victim mindset, putting myself in these situations. It's so important that the people that you choose to have in that inner circle of yours. And through this happening and going through court and all that stuff, the judge, like, I thought that the judge would have sympathy on me because we had like
But
I brought
no.
my pictures in, I had this whole case, and the judge was like, I don't care that you got the living crap beat out of you by this guy because you're lucky you didn't kill someone else. And like the
Wow.
judge just ripped me apart, and at the time I didn't realize it, but the judge was right. And
Yeah.
the judge is like, you keep putting yourself in these stupid situations, stupid
Wow.
stuff will keep happening to you, and you should thank God that you didn't kill someone else or run into
Mhm.
a minivan with a family in it with all
Right.
these
Oh
times
my
you're
God. Could you imagine? I mean, what could have
right.
happened?
And I never used to think about that. And like and then my blood alcohol was so high that that was another reason they had no sympathy.
Oh,
Even
I
the cop
bet.
said when he first read the report, he assumed I was either like getting my stomach pumped or dead from alcohol poisoning.
So you were that far off the charts then.
Right. And doing other things with it.
Right.
And yeah, so like going through that process and really just then having my jaw from it being broken, and just I remember just feeling like so depressed, like such a loser. And then I started feeling like scared of, oh my gosh, like what if I can't control this? And
Yeah.
I at that time, like I was so numb, I didn't care about myself that much. But
Right.
I started thinking, what if I do kill someone else? Like, or what if something else happens and I end up
Terrifying.
back in jail or
Yeah.
prison?
I
Because
mean,
then I was on probation and all this stuff. And like the fear of that got me to really just know that I had to change. And I gradually, just to kind of fast forward, stopped hanging around the people that I was hanging around with. But it wasn't an
that's a
overnight
good start.
process. Right. It was like gradual. And I
Yeah.
didn't just quit like everything. Like I didn't totally quit drinking. I started kind of like transitioning, and I do
That's
it
my
and I
favorite
was
word.
like, I don't like this. It's just weird. Like everyone's still the same, and I just started seeing things kind of differently. I read my first full book at age 18. I had never
Hey,
read a
better
full
late than
book.
never.
I like I said, I knew how to read. Obviously I graduated high school, but I never read a full book. I would just find what I needed to get the answers to
Cliff
the book
notes.
report.
That would be Cliff
Right.
notes. Yes.
That
Yes.
was
I
before
know.
like so much internet and stuff now too, where you could probably
Yeah,
just
you can find
get it
anything
way
now. These kids
easier.
don't have to read any books. But
Find it off a
whatever, that's
TikTok
another
clip.
topic. I don't get me started on that.
Just
Proceed.
ask Siri, yeah. But anyway, it was Stephen King's Pet Cemetery, which a lot of people are like, that's not a personal development book.
Yeah, not really.
But the thing was, at that time, like at that age, it was something that I was interested in, the story, and really saw like the beauty of the writing, and I was like, realized, wow, I can actually read pretty fast when I am excited
When you're
about it.
interested in the subject matter, yes. Yeah.
And from that, it led to me reading other books, and then it eventually led to like even more personal development, like Think and Grow Rich, and a
I
lot of
love that
and
book.
right, right. And I just like got absorbed into reading, and then it made me start thinking, man, maybe I'm not stupid like I thought I was,
Yeah.
and maybe I can go to college. And that could be a whole other podcast of
Yeah.
college is worth it or not. But
It
for
is.
me,
No,
and
I get that.
again,
I can stop you right there. That is absolutely so the story, especially depending on where you grow up or like, even
right.
when you grew up, you always think you have a certain idea of yourself and what your abilities are and your smarts compared to your other, classmates and whatever. And that right there sets the tone and the pace for where a lot of people end up going. And they're like, well, I can't go to college. I'm a terrible student. Actually, you're not a terrible student. You just weren't interested and you weren't engaged. But anyway, like you said, that's another podcast, but it's a fascinating topic, in my opinion, as a life coach. Move on. Going on.
Well, no,
Sorry.
you're right, Karen, and it's with anything to anyone listening to this
Mhm.
with speaking. It's like, well, I can't do that. I'm an introvert. I don't have the confidence. It's a muscle, and I'll talk about that more. You build it. You
I
you
love it.
can
Yeah.
become extroverted real quick when you need to, when your why is really connected enough to it and you actually care.
Yeah.
You can learn it just like anything else. But anyway, like moving back, so for me, going to college was almost like to show myself I could do that. Was almost like the next kind of impossible for me at that phase in my life.
Mhm.
Like I want to do this. I want to show I can just start something and finish it.
What was your
And
mindset there? Like, why did you decide? Is it just because you were looking around, like you said, you had already started to distance yourself from kind of the riffraff and negative influences? And was there just something inside you that says, no, I know there is more for me? Or is that kind of what drove you to say, no, I'm going to college. I'm going to do this for me. I want to do this for me.
there was, and at that time I didn't have like my whole, and I like to tell people this too, to understand like it's okay to not, I wasn't like, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to start a company for individuals with special needs, I'm going to have a book, I'm going to be a speaker. I didn't even have a clue that all that was coming
Yeah.
down the line.
Who'd have
For
thunk
me,
it?
the next thing was just like, I hate everything about what I'm doing now. And honestly, like I'm so terrified,
Hmm.
like I said, that I'm going to wind up killing someone or dead or
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
prison. And so that just seemed like the next kind of big step for me to do
Hmm.
something and push me out of my comfort zone.
Right.
And I was getting into reading. And of course, the guys in the trailer, when I told them that, like they laughed at me and they're calling me like a sellout. And they're like, people like us
Oh
don't
my
go to
gosh.
college.
Wow.
That's
Really?
the
Like,
importance of people. Exactly. So I didn't listen to them. And sadly, they're both dead now, which is horrible to hear. And I didn't find it out till years later when I wrote my book.
oh,
But
wow.
one of them actually committed suicide, and the other one overdosed. So, and had two little girls.
Oh my
Really
gosh.
sad.
Okay,
But
those are
it
horrible
goes to show
stories.
you like them. It's so important who you keep having in that circle. I would have been number three. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what the writing on the wall says, all signs point to that. So, I mean, again, uh, just that very technical detail right there is always part of a story that I find fascinating, is what made you change when they didn't change? Like, what was it about you? What was your special sauce to say, I
right.
want better? Because some people just don't want better because they don't know that they can have better, you know?
You're right. I still wonder that too, like what gives people that, because they got into trouble and they were in and out of jail at times too. And I always wonder like what is the difference that gave me like that extra
Yeah.
push. And I don't know if it was from starting to read that first book. Um, I don't preach down people's throats because people have all different things that they believe in and strengthen them. Like for me, I started believing in God and just kind of like seeing a different side of really like the authority, but more of like you have this power within you
Yeah,
that
for sure.
like through Christ I can do all things, or whatever you believe. And I
Hmm.
started seeing that more as like a confidence thing, and
Love
seeing
it.
like, wow, if I really believe this, then that means I can do all things.
Right.
And that was something else that would kind of keep pushing me.
Mhm.
And even graduating college, I tell everyone like it was much more about perseverance than it was about
Good word.
education. So
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah. Just to say I did it. I want to prove
right,
to everybody else, whoever all those other people are, but mainly to yourself. But there is always that them. What are they?
right.
I'm going to show them, the proverbial them, whoever them is. We never quite know, but it's mainly for ourselves. Once we figure that out, you're a lot better off. But yes,
I had an art teacher in
perseverance.
high school tell me too. She's like, kids like you should just drop out of high school. They should have a thing and play. And I
Oh my
actually enjoyed art
gosh.
too. So yeah,
How in the
to
world did
her,
you land where you are right now with that? I mean, that's crazy. I
right?
mean,
I know,
yeah,
great.
that's crazy. Okay,
But
that's
when
horrible.
you hear those things, you can either, because they're going to keep coming, you
I
can
know
either
they are.
use that energy like to fuel you
Yep.
or drive you, or you can sit there and be angry about it all day. And I've
The
done all of
victim, like
them,
you said,
and
the
it doesn't
victim.
help. Yeah,
I
it
can't do
doesn't
the
help.
victim. Yeah.
So then after high school, I started, actually, that's what got me out here to Ohio, where I am now.
Yeah,
My
I'd like
brother
to
had
know
a
how
tile
that leap
company.
happened.
Yeah, well, my brother had his own tile company. He was about 10 years older than me,
Mm-hmm.
and he had been doing it for a while. So I used to just do labor with him in the summers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, when I'm done with college, I'll just come work with you for a while till I figure out maybe I'll look into going to grad school at OSU or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I, again, like one thing I always had was like that hard work ethic. And I remember working
Mm-hmm.
for him and being like, just because my brother's the owner, I don't want people to think that I'm getting any favors.
Yeah.
And so like I'd be doing the labor, picking up all the stuff, and just like always wanting to work 10 times harder than everyone else, like with that sweat equity. But
Yep.
that was the
Love it.
first time I started thinking like, wow, I could actually own a business. And I had never thought about that because I saw how my brother had built his own
Yeah.
company from the ground up. I
Mm-hmm.
never even consider that as like a thing. I
See,
guess because I
that's
had never
that.
like really seen it. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like he's built this up from the ground up, and
Right.
him and his partner. And then as I ended up, I had my BS in psychology and got a job offer working with developmental disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
That's what pulled me into the field of seeing like where there was such a need and how horrible that it was.
Yeah.
And like after high school that they had no options and they were
Mm-hmm.
stuck in like these giant warehouses with fluorescent lights, and they could put machine parts together,
Right.
or they're like, here's crayons and a piece of paper, you can color all day. And the staff wouldn't like help or do anything, and they just sit there and read magazines all day. And it was just, I love being in the field, but it was
Mm-hmm.
really depressing to see
Yes.
like that was the only option after high
Right.
school for a lot of individuals that need, there's all different levels, but especially for a lot that needed like assistance with eating and things like toileting, and they can't just be
Yeah.
home alone or
Right.
totally independent.
Right.
And
They need
so
assistance. Right.
yeah. And then I did a variety of things in the field, got into special education.
Love it.
Then from there, still saw, as my students like went to graduate, we started
Mhm.
touring all the workshops, and I'm like, man, there has to be something out there that's better. And
Yeah.
there wasn't. And my brother, who has been an entrepreneur, had just purchased a rundown campground. It's called Autumn Lakes Campground, which I think they got 14 years ago. It's amazing now, by the way. If you go
Oh,
out there, it's in
wow.
Sunbury. But back then, it was nothing, and it was just a huge project they were starting. And he's like, if you think of something to do like with developmental disabilities, like a camp or whatever, you can use one of our buildings out here, and you can pay rent, but we'll give you a good price. And I'm like, okay. And I started researching, connected with a guy that owned the only other program in the state of Ohio that was like near Cincinnati on the other end of the state. And
Yeah.
that was the first time I saw something. It was on like a ranch. They had horses. It was really
Oh my
awesome. And it
gosh.
was like different than my vision a little bit, but it was something like they weren't in these horrible factories.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Like you said, with the fluorescent lights and everyone doing like the same thing and repetitive and whatever.
Yeah. And to everyone listening, like, feel free to reach out and risk looking foolish or stupid or whatever you think it may be. I just reached out to the owner and I'm like, hey, I was 24, 25, and I'm just like, I love what you're doing. I'm thinking of starting something like that. He could have hung up on me. He could have, and he's like,
Right, especially
hey,
because you're like 24 and he's like, oh, okay, kid, like trying not to,
right,
like really taking you seriously, really? Okay. But there's something ordained about that connection. Whatever you were doing there was something very ordained about it. And
right. And it was kind of even by accident. And he ended up spending like an hour talking on the phone with me. Then I went out there and met with him and saw his whole program. And something he told me is he like pulled this huge book out of all the state laws and rules. And he's like, look,
overwhelming.
you're going to have to go to battle because I was the first one to open up an agency on this side of the state of Ohio that like wasn't owned by the state or the county. And there's a lot of politics involved.
Yeah.
There's a lot with the funding, like they want all the funding to go to them because without trying to overcomplicate it, you bill kind of like a doctor's office would, different types of insurances and Medicaid, Medicare for like the different clients.
Mm-hmm.
And the states and the counties controlled the funding and they owned all their own
Great.
companies.
Right.
And so
A nice little monopoly for them. I mean,
even though he was
really?
like licensed and certified, they had the choice, just like you would with like your insurance, to pick any doctor in your network.
Yeah.
They could choose to go to anyone as long as you're certified and as a licensed agency.
Yeah.
But what was happening to him is like either at the county or state level, they would just flat out lie to families and be like, no, you can't go there. Or they stopped funding him. And he said at one point they owed him almost, I think, $400,000 built up over months and months and months. And he had
That makes
his
me sick.
house almost going bankrupt. His like had
That
taken a
makes me sick.
double mortgage. He had all the staff on payroll. He was paying out of credit cards, and it wasn't legal. But he didn't give up, and he fought him in court, and he won.
Oh
But
my
he's
God.
like, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's not easy. Like
Yeah.
there was so many sleepless nights, Mark. And he's like, but I'm proof you can do it, and you're gonna have to put the time in. You're gonna have to get to know all these state rules and laws. So as I was working full time in the school, that's what I did. I spent like a year learning every Medicaid rule and law, basically becoming like a self-taught lawyer
Oh my
because I
God.
knew, and I wasn't like, yeah, I'm so excited to learn these Medicaid, but I
Yeah.
was,
Yeah. Medicaid laws. Yeah. I can't wait. That's exactly why I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I mean, could they make that any harder? But even for a second though, if I can just back up
sure,
one thought back is that, when in my favorite, preacher teacher, and I know I've mentioned to you, TD Jakes, he has a series way back when that was called Nothing Just Happens. And that was one of my favorite series that he did. And so I could easily transfer that over into your part of the story of what you're telling. Cause you get into psychology and oops, you just happen to fall into special, like, special needs work and things like this for developmental disabilities. And
right.
what did you go there on purpose? No, you probably didn't, but you fell into it because it was an opportunity. But darn well that was ordained. So
Yeah, 100. I always say
nothing
God
just
is
happens. And if
orchestrating.
we can take the time to be present to look back in our lives and see what our path has been, you will have that aha moment. You will see how the whole picture fits together. And then, of course, some of us decide to act on it and some of us that, did not. Here you are acting on it. I will let you continue, but that's just a point that I love, 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 is that people need to understand that these things do not happen by accident. This is very, very much orchestrated.
It's so true. Did you say from TD Jakes?
Yes, I
Okay,
did.
that's right. I love him too. He's
Yeah,
amazing.
he's amazing.
In the
Just very
future, we'll have him
insightful.
on.
Yeah, he's
But
my man.
yeah, no, it's so true. And when you're in the midst of it, like it's not like the whole thing's mapped out for you.
Mm-mm. Nope.
But yeah, God is always orchestrating, and a lot of times it's more of like a pulling at your gut.
Yes.
And when it won't go away, Because
Yes.
it's not just like this dream just drops from the sky and it's like, here's what you're going to do.
Yeah, and this is
It's
what's
more of
next.
like this
No,
pulling
no, it's not.
that's way out of your comfort zone. And when it
Yep,
keeps not going away, I'm like, okay, God, like personally,
exactly.
like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And
Yep,
I just will have the faith to keep taking action, as scary as it continues to be.
yep.
But also the drive from this too, a huge part was just seeing how horrible the situation was.
Yeah.
And again, like you can complain about it or really take action and do
Mhm.
something about it.
Right.
And so like now we flash forward, it's been over 13 years. I can't believe it. But we have over 55 individuals that we serve at Dreamshine. As you
Oh,
were mentioning before, like a 2.5 acre campus,
I love it.
like over 20 people, amazing people on my team. We continue to grow. We've had a wait list. It's been a huge ongoing whole other battle through COVID, which everyone's been going through too, but we've pushed through it. Like, thank God, been able to keep everyone on my team, on my staff on all their full pay, full
Oh,
benefits, everything
wow. What a
too.
blessing.
It's been a lot of work, but
Yeah.
that is kind of, to help sum it up. And there was tons in between there too, like even getting threatening phone calls from a lady that worked high up at the state telling me not to open Dreamshine. By the
For
way, I
what
forgot about
reason?
that.
Like, what? Like, that is crazy. You're
Right.
like a marked man. The people that come after you just kills me. I mean, like, what is going on with you? There's something about your spirit that really disrupts them. And there's just something very disruptive about you.
Well, it's crazy, but what I've learned too is those are like when that happens more and more now, I'm able to
Mhm.
be like, oh, thank you, God. That just is another sign that I'm doing what I'm
Confirmation.
supposed to be doing.
Yes,
Because
indeed.
why would this lady from the state be threatened by at that time? Like I was just turning 26, some 26-year-old kid
Yeah.
trying to open up an agency at a campground where I'm like mailing out brochures I made on a computer. We don't have one client enrolled. And so one
Yeah.
part was like, how did she get my number? What was like kind of, then another part was like, thank you for calling. Don't ever call me again. And that fueled me even more. I'm like, if they're that serious about trying to stop me, that like, that just pushed me. That just
Oh,
lit the
yeah. That's
fire even
more
more.
emboldening. I mean, I feel like I would be that same way too. Like, oh, no. No, 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 no. I'm not going to stop because of you. If I'm stopping, it's because I want to stop, not because I'm being told to stop. Yes,
That's
exactly.
right. And they're supposed to be like part of advocating for all agencies. And
Oh,
that's the
how is
other
that
thing.
helping? Yeah, I mean,
Right.
man, who are you protecting here? Because it doesn't seem like you're protecting the participants that would be able to benefit from the program that I'm trying to start. It's a very
Right.
curious agenda. Like, who are you actually protecting here? It doesn't seem
That's the
like,
thing. And that's still like, I can get angry. You can get into the victim mindset and be like, the world's unfair. It's not.
yeah.
And those things can and will be true, but
Hmm.
getting in that mindset never helps. So, like,
No, it doesn't.
use that energy to invest it into taking action towards that dream of yours is the key
It
versus
is.
dwelling on all the other stuff.
It really is. I mean, I could go on victim mindset because that's really the stopper. I mean, that's really, I think, I mean, I don't know, any percentage on that, but I would guess it's at least 80% of why people don't pursue things that they should be or want to because they're like, oh, well, so-and-so is going to hold me down. The man is going to keep me in my place, or that person told me that I'm not smart, so I guess I'm dumb. And so it's really, screw it. It's everyone
Yeah.
else's fault that I'm not doing something, you know,
Right.
they point the
Right.
fingers.
And it's one other thing I've heard from that said Karen too is it's like you have these cards that you're dealt and you can sit there and be like, this hand's unfair. I have the worst hand in the world. But the thing is, you don't have any choice but to do the best you can, like with a damn hand that you've been dealt.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
like, I can complain about this all day, or I can figure out, okay, this is what I'm dealing with.
Yes.
how can I keep moving and like re-strategizing to win in some way, somehow with this hand? Because what other option do you truly have? That's
You
it. And
quit.
when you
You
look at it
quit and
like
you blame it
that,
on
it's
everybody
like,
else. So that's
right,
your
it
other
doesn't
option.
help. It's still, you still have the same hand that you're dealt. And it's like,
Exactly, but it doesn't change the hands, the cards that are in your hand. That's exactly right. It's what you do with the cards in your hand. And I think, Mark, you would agree with this. And I would love to hear your take on this. But like you said before, how things, you have to practice things because they're like a muscle. I think courage is a muscle. And I've
100%.
often said that. You have to decide to be courageous and go, okay, I got a crappy hand. I mean, I've got like ace no face and it's a euchre hand. And this hand sucks. I mean, I'm not going to win, but I am going to be able to help my partner win with, this low heart that I have, or whatever it is
Sure.
for all you euchre fans out there. I mean, I think changing the energy around bad luck,
Right.
or whatever. And don't think of it as bad luck. It's energy that you've brought to yourself. But once you change the energy, it's suddenly you're getting those aces, you're getting those jacks, you're getting things because suddenly you've decided you deserve them and you're waiting for them now. You're waiting to be blessed as opposed to waiting to be hammered. Would you agree that that kind of
A
happens?
hun- 100%. I say, I agree. I say it and I agree with you. And courage is so much a muscle,
Mhm.
and confidence and everything, any greatness, it can be built. And it's not just something that you're born with. And that's what I used to falsely
Love it.
believe too,
Hmm.
because I went through a whole thing of going through like these horrible, like anxiety and panic attacks
Yeah.
and thinking, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? And I used to think, okay, God, like if you put this dream, why isn't it? And to me, it'd be like, well, faith means you got to keep taking action
Yes.
without knowing what's going to happen. And I used to think like, well, aren't I going to feel courageous first? And it's like, no,
No.
you got to do it while you're scared out of your mind,
Yes.
and you become courageous along the way. And like each little thing that you do, like you said, it's a muscle. Like
Yeah.
when I'm doing something now, I'm able to look back even at, I remember when I thought it would be impossible to go to college and I got
Mhm.
through that. I remember when I thought it would be impossible to start Dream Shine, and then I had to go in front of the whole state and battle the state and take them
Wow.
to the federal level.
Yeah.
And I got through that. And it's like, if I got through that, then I can get through this. And
Yeah.
it never, like the fear part and stuff never totally goes away. And
Yeah.
and it shouldn't, because it's a weird resistance that
Mhm.
having that and kind of understanding more of what fear is, that it's just
Mhm.
a feeling, and that really it's more of like something that comes when you're going out of your comfort zone
Right.
and being like, okay, like take a deep breath, and everyone goes through it, and then you keep taking action, and that's like where that courage gets built,
It
literally like a
does.
muscle.
And I mean, I think you're proof of that, of what, the things you've been able to accomplish. And we haven't even hit on, I'd love to just touch on your podcast. And then, of course, your upcoming book, which is basically a culmination of all of these life lessons that you've had to take the hard knocks on. But now you're telling us how you did it and how to navigate through that. Because, a lot of people are a little earlier in the process. You're a little later into the process. You've had things throw you off and you're kind of telling us about it. And I appreciate that. As I was the late to the party person. I wanted to go the safe route and stay in corporate America. And then entrepreneurship, you have to be a beast. I mean,
Right.
you just do.
But you
You
but
have
you
to be
learn to be
courageous
too,
as
right,
all get
Karen?
out.
Like you weren't just so, like you're saying with the courage muscle, it's like
Yep.
it's not just exactly only in your blood and you're just like, oh, I never have fear, I'm an entrepreneur. But it's true. Like you have to know at the end of the day, no matter what, it's on you.
It's on you.
Because great, you have 5,000 employees and you have this and that. They quit, this happens, someone has a false lawsuit, payrolls due. At the end of the day, you
Accountability.
have to make it happen.
Yes, the buck always stops with you. You have to be willing to take that on too. Another level of courage. Not only trying to see the road that's not built in front of you and just stepping and hoping you don't step off the cliff, but then once you're there, all the other problems that come at you. So it is it's not for the faint of heart to try and do something like this. It is a little easier to just stay in a job that's already ready made. And I wish I could have been happy there, but I wasn't. So I, of course, chose to, put myself through all kinds of anxiety to go this route. But it's rewarding because it's acting from the gut. And that's why
100%.
I love your story, because you have had to buck the system. And tell me about how did you decide to do your podcast, how long you've been doing it, and
Sure.
like who you bring on as guests and things.
Yeah. And on the other side of that, yeah, just so great to mention that, like, there are rewards
There are.
that you earn. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like with your going through battles and you have your scars and you have them as badges of honor. And
Yeah.
then you reach different levels of success and
Mm-hmm.
significant success. It's still always some ups and downs,
Yeah.
but that's like part of your rewards you get. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't get it without like taking that huge risk. And a lot of
Taking the
people don't
risk.
see those years and years and years behind the
True.
scenes. They
Mm-hmm.
see someone make it successfully and they're just like, oh, I want what they have, or oh, Karen just had it handed to her. It just always had an easy life.
No.
And they don't see what it really
They
takes. And
do.
everyone listening, it's good to know
Yeah.
that you're not alone. And
Yeah.
all of us go through that struggle and that battle.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
like
it's
part
not
of earning
always
it.
going to be easy. And so don't quit at the first sign of any kind of, you know, counter resistance that comes at you. I mean, it's not a time to collapse and fall. Be in it to win it and be in it for the long haul. I mean, you have to be committed in order to do this. So, yeah, I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of really rich lessons in this.
If
and
you
from
don't
your
have
journey,
any
there's a lot of things, and
opposition,
sorry I keep stopping you and pulling them out, but I just feel like they're really important that you've
oh
shared.
no, it's fine. I'm the same way. I do the same thing on my show all the time.
Yeah.
I'm
Sorry, just pause that for 1 second. Sorry, just pause. Yeah, no, I keep doing that to my guests. I'm so sorry, but
it
I think
doesn't
it's
bother
just
me at all.
really important because it's stuff has spoken to me from other podcasters who have paved the way for me. You know what I mean? Like podcast people who I've listened to, or entrepreneurship podcasts, and I've learned from all of you saying what you have gone through. So I like to highlight those little nuggets of wisdom that can kind of get skated over a little bit if we don't stop. So sorry.
Yes, and I've learned too that it's not like if, but when you're hit with that opposition,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're never hit with any opposition, I would be more afraid of that because you're doing nothing.
Yes,
And you're not going out of that
you're
comfort
not
zone. You're not
moving.
pushing any boundaries. So there's no oppositions like, I don't care about you. You're doing nothing anyway, and
Yeah,
you're
like
really
you're
staying in
not a
that comfort
problem.
zone.
You know.
So know, like, when that stuff hits you, it's
Mhm.
literally because you're doing the right thing and you're pushing
Amen.
yourself out of there.
Amen. That is absolutely right. It's very easy when you do nothing. I mean, nothing's going to happen. Change nothing and nothing changes, right? So your life's going to be very smooth sailing. But at the end, what is the fulfillment level? Or if you really sit down and get quiet with yourself, are you really going to feel like I lived my best life? I came in, I feel so
Right.
fulfilled. I needed to feel that. And I know there's a lot
Right.
of other people who need to feel it too, but just don't realize like they're just skating. And I know I was skating. So, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's part of too. There's even like different levels of your why and what you do. And even as whatever you're doing in a business as an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
like Dream Shine was the foundation of it all.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started getting to a point, like I got really involved in leadership and I'm like, crap, I have
Love it.
a bunch more team members. Leadership isn't, you're not just born a leader either. It's a
Yeah.
skill, it's a muscle.
Yeah,
You grow it, you
that's for
get
sure.
better at it.
Yes.
I speak on all the time and I'm like, here's what I did that sucked. Here's how I learned to get better at that. Here's why it's better now. It's not because it just magically happened,
Yeah.
but and that started to push me out as far as the show goes. Like, I realized I had to get better at stuff like leadership. And I went to
Mhm.
my first like big live event as a business owner. And I got around, and it was a paid one. I had a bunch of skin in the game,
Yeah.
and I was around a bunch of other, not just in my field. This is important too, because I used to just be around people like in my field. It
Mm-hmm.
got me around all these other different business owners, whether they were, some were in my field, some
Mm-hmm.
owned oil companies, some were
Oh.
had a bunch of hair salons, some had, it was like a vet that had like different veterinarian clinics. One was a New York Times best-selling author. And
Mm-hmm.
it, but what was great is they all had this similar, like where I was, like core values, that they truly cared about what they were doing, what product they were making, how it was helping people, and they
Mm-hmm.
cared about like the people on their team, and they wanted to be the best versions of themselves at
Yes.
home, like in their company, as like wives, as husbands. Like
Mm-hmm.
they were like, I'm not showing up enough for my marriage. I want to be better there. I'm not
Love
showing.
it.
And it was like they openly shared their struggle. And as we all connected more and more, I found out that people would come and start asking me more questions. And like this lady and her husband that own this like $500 million a year oil company were like, Mark, how have you been able to do that with the, like this no gossip policy you have? And how is that? And I left there later on thinking like, wait, what? They were asking me for advice?
Like
Like, I
how,
didn't
what
think I
a
had
like a
anything.
dystopian situation, thinking, now wait a minute, I'm gonna eat you. Like, how did you make this,
Right.
$1 million oil company and then whatever?
And and being around that too made me see like, wow, like I felt this whole other passion of leadership and wanting to connect. And that's what started bringing the idea of,
Love it.
I think I could have a podcast, and I want to start having people like sharing their story behind the story of
Mm-hmm.
what they've overcome, and just real talk to achieve
Mm-hmm.
those different levels of significant success in their life,
Right.
but not just in business. Like whether I've had NFL players on my show, or
Mm-hmm.
people that have been actors, or I've
Mm-hmm.
tons of business owners, but it's always this, like what we're talking about on here, what like the
Mm-hmm.
theme is for this whole series that you're doing, those clues that it leaves,
Yeah, it does.
is you always find those similar things of like different levels of adversity. Some
Yes.
people that you would think would be the biggest extroverts are totally introverted.
Yeah.
And behind the
True.
scenes, one NFL player told me off air, like, I get nervous before he's like, I'm so nervous. I'm like, dude, you had a full ride scholarship at Ohio State. You play for
What are you nervous
professionally for
about?
this, like you could jump 20 feet high, right? Like you're nervous. And he's like, yeah, man, I don't. And I was like, man, thanks for telling me that, because I needed to hear. I'm
Yeah,
happy
so
to
you're
hear
not a
people like you get
superhero after all.
nervous.
Good to know that I'm not a total loser over here. Like, I'm like, completely nervous about everything. And I guess you're human like me. Excellent. Good to know.
Everyone's over, and he had to work 10 times harder than everyone else to get to where he was. Even though he had a full ride, he was like, he played for Trussell, and he's like, he'd be there after practice, then
Keep
staying
working.
5 more hours. That's how we got to the NFL, by the way, because everyone else was already amazing. So
Mhm.
it's the same correlations that we see, because I used to falsely think, well, athletes must just be born with it all. It's like,
Nope.
nope.
No,
Research Kobe Bryant. The
the
day
work.
he was 17 and made it into the NBA, everyone else went out and partied. He went to the gym and practiced.
Mm-hmm.
He practiced harder. Him and Michael, yeah, you hear that same stuff over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you need to be willing to go through terrible on the way to becoming great. It's
Oh,
the only
yes.
way to do it. And so to
Yes.
bring that to the podcast,
Yeah.
like before it had the top 100 on iTunes, or like the studio you see here now. I did my first episode sitting in my car at Dreamshine with just a headpiece in,
Yeah.
and my iPhone, and it was raining, and the audio
Yep.
sounded like crap. I
You can
had
hear
no
horns honking.
idea what I was
Yeah.
doing.
all the
And
riffs
I
going
shared
on in
my
the back. Yeah,
story.
I know. I've been there. I've done that. Done that because when you have kids, you have to get out of your house because you have no guarantee that it's going to be quiet. The
Right.
only time you can guarantee it is when you're in a car alone. Other than that, anything could happen. A pet, a kid, anything can be banging on your door any moment, and I know that every time. So I
That's
get it.
right.
I've been there.
And
Still there.
I was at Dreamshine where my company is, and I had my office there, but there's always, and then part of me felt like I don't want people to know I'm doing this. And I had this false, like, I'm cheating on my company Dreamshine because I'm doing it. And it's so
Yeah.
stupid, but these things come in your head
No, it
because
does.
truly they're all interconnected. It's like you have a win here, it connects to here. It's like
Right.
people that are on my team, if you as a leader, like keep elevating, like everyone can only rise as much. You're like the lid on your organization, as John Maxwell would
Yes.
say. But I had no idea what I was doing. I figured out like it, but it got me to share my whole jail story on the
Yeah.
first episode,
That's a
which
huge
then led me
story,
to
though.
write
I
my
mean, like,
first
that's a
book.
huge deal because, again, if you can make it from a jail cell at 17, then, all these other people use all the excuses to hide behind that are a lot less, dramatic than your story. And they're still sitting there in the starting block, and you've already ran like 16 miles. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, again, it's just highlighting the inequity of life. We always hear, oh, well, they've got more privilege and they don't have this much, and they have, but it's kind of what you decide to do with what you have at the moment, and then
Right.
sort of change the mindset. It becomes a mindset situation.
100%. And then like with the first book, I had the story of you. It was such a learning process and a whole other behind the scenes and how that got made into a book and then got published. And then I through a guest I had on my show,
Mm-hmm.
who's a New York Times best-selling author, Dan Miller of 48 Days to the Work You Love, amazing
Oh,
guy,
wow.
ends up writing the foreword to my book
Oh my
because I
gosh.
met him through having him on the show. Like as I was starting it, I
That's
wasn't like, and I'm
awesome.
going to meet this New York Times best-selling author and he's going to write the foreword. Again, like you just
You
keep taking that
manifested it.
action.
You manifested it. You decided to put your mind on it, and then you change the energy. It sometimes it's kind of, that's where it all starts. I mean, you decide what you want, and then you put your energy towards it and say, okay, somehow, some way, I'm making this happen because I feel it in here. And what I will tell some of my clients, and then let's talk about your book because this is going long, and I know you got things to do. Um, is you want, you follow what's in your heart, because like I wouldn't have wanted to be a lacrosse player because it was never in my heart or in my purpose to ever be a lacrosse player. So like I don't feel sad that I'm not a lacrosse player because it's not something that I sought out. So what is it that you seek out in that you really want? And that's the first clue as to what maybe you should be doing in your life. Possibly either as a creative outlet or to monetize it into a career for yourself. But really follow what's in your heart already, because it's already there. Everything that you want is, your goals, your desires are already put there anyway. So kind of listen or take stock of what's there already, and then start the steps to follow that. I don't know. That's kind of a starting spot for some of the clients who feel stuck, who don't know where they want to
Right.
go or what they want, what will make them happy. That's a starting point. So you doing that is just another example. You following what's in your heart and what's in your gut. So with all of the wisdom that you've collected, probably through the people that you've learned about on your podcast, through your own life, through all of your knocks coming through, starting your own business and everything, I saw a couple chapters preview of your book that's going to be coming out. Tell us a little bit about this book, when it's going to come out officially for everybody to seek out. And let's talk about that before we wrap up.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. And what you were just saying too, for all your clients, everyone, it's like start doing, and you'll keep figuring out the how along the way. And
So
it's like
true.
first you climb the hill,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can see a little further. Then you get your rewards, like you climb a bigger hill, and then
Mm-hmm.
a bigger mountain. Then you'll tumble backwards down it, and you have to
Yes.
start but you keep going. And the thing that people falsely assume is they look at where some people can be after they've like summited this mountain. They think, well, they must have had it all figured out. And it's like, no, I'm the first to openly be like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'm still figuring new
Yes.
things out along the way. Like with
So
speaking,
true.
I would be terrified of
Mhm.
speaking. At first, I'm like, I don't want to do this. But again, like God's like, it's not about you. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's
about
not about you.
who's going to get help. Like you don't get to give up. I'm just like, come on, pick someone
Exactly.
else.
He's using you. He's like, get up, just like, the Jonah and the whale. Jonah's trying to run the other way, and he just has a big old whale swallow him up and spit him over onto Tarshish, just throw him up over there because he's like, no, I got a job and you're going to do it. Whether you think you're going to or not, you are. So
That's right. And
horses
I
work
still get,
against
and
you.
people will be like, well, you don't get nervous. I'm like, I felt like I was going to throw up I've done this hundreds of times. I just felt like I was going to puke before I got it. I'll tell them, and
Yeah.
they're like, I'm serious, but I just have to remember my why and that it's bigger than me and just keep going. There's times
Trust.
I've done events and
Yeah.
screwed up, and I'm like, man, all right, how do I learn from that? How do I make it better?
Yes.
And that's just, you gotta get, like Tyson said, everyone, what does he say? It's always fun until you get punched in the face.
Until you get punched.
And it's a lot easier to judge from outside the arena too, when you're in the audience versus literally being the one down there getting punched in the
Yeah,
face,
taking the blows.
because you'll get KO'd and you'll give KOs. And
Mm-hmm.
it's so easy to be like, oh, you sucked at. It's like, try being in there and getting those punches.
Yeah. See what that feels like.
um but yeah, so my book, 16 Reasons Why Your Business Sucks. I'm actually,
I love
for
that.
the
Yeah, please show
video,
that.
if you can
Thank you. Oh,
see.
I love it. And that title's hilarious. Why your business
And
sucks.
it's the subtitles, How to Be Freaking Awesome at Every Level of Your Business, Leadership, Profits, and Build Your Own Dream Team.
Oh my
And
gosh. This is
it's
like a
coming out.
guidebook. Let's do this. I can't wait.
It's totally for you. Yeah, it's so it's for like pre-order now on Amazon. If you just look it up, it's there. It's officially releasing September 8th.
Okay.
And it's been 3 years in the making, really 13 plus years in the making. And it's literally everything that I talk about. And that's why I try not to make it boring. Like, you'll hear the word freaking 3,000 times in
Yeah,
it,
I
just the
love
way
it.
I'm talking now. But there's a
Very
section on
relaxed.
finances. There's
Yeah,
dealing with conflict, drama, so just everything. Like
I love
even
that.
one on perseverance, because I feel like that's not even. It's like they give you this whole thing and they don't talk about, here's how to build that perseverance muscle. And I just
Mm-hmm.
share a personal story with each one. Here's
Mm-hmm.
how I sucked. Here's how I overcome, like,
Here's
oh,
how I
actually
suck.
from real life experience. And here's what you can do. Cause there's great things out there, but we see a lot this day and age too, where people are like, buy my book and, make 6 figures in 30 days or something.
Yeah.
It's like, ugh, you're not helping
That's a
people.
little too easy. This isn't real. I think those of us who are already out there know that's not true.
Right.
Already know this is now. Granted, there's things we could learn to,
Of course.
to get better at all these, different hats that we have to wear and whatnot. But yeah, I think most people who are already out in the terrain understand that. No, there's knocks you take. God knows there's a lot of them.
Yes.
So I like that you're real, you're authentic. I like that you say freaking awesome in that book all the time and that you suck. And I love that. It's because nobody says it like that. Nobody just, they try to be very, oh, well, and put all these charts and graphs. And wow, that's nice. And I
Right.
do like the science of it. I do. I'm kind of a data girl, kind of.
Sure.
But then I'm an art. It's an art and a science. And this building a business is an art and a science. And like you said, it brings in leadership, which is a huge deal.
Oh my God. Talk about now.
And courage. And that's the biggest one. In my opinion, courage is the biggest thing for me, because the knowledge will
They go
find
hand
its
in
way to you.
hand, courage and leadership. And that's the core of it. It's like the tagline on the back says, until you learn to master leadership, you'll never be successful as an entrepreneur, especially in the long run.
Yeah.
And talk about now, like the times we're going through,
Mm-hmm.
leadership is needed more than ever. And it's like, you can be an entrepreneur, you can have the ideas, you can be creative, you can build something amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But once you truly learn, and it's like a muscle, these leadership
Mm-hmm.
skills that you build, that's when you're able to just like take things to a whole new possibility that
Yes.
I never even knew was possible. And I share so many, it's amazing, because I never knew stories of people on my team that they'd be sharing how being part of the team and the culture and learning through the leadership, like, help them in their marriage. I
Yeah.
never saw that part of being like an entrepreneur. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
like that's a whole other level of your
It
why.
is, but it really does have interplay. It's because it's, it's at the core of you. It's at the core of how you live your life and your values and your awareness, your self-awareness. And I know you touch on that big time in the book, is self-awareness. And I think that is the starting point of all
Yeah.
relationship building and connection, is having some
Yes.
self-awareness, you know?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's a great read. I've already been flipping through all of the chapters as a little pre-read that you treated me to a few of those things that I was able to see, and it's a fast read. It's a good read. It's entertaining. I like that you're anecdotal. I like that you throw your own stories in there to kind of, you know, put action into what your words are, saying, okay, like this situation, I had this, and you're not afraid to say, with, things blew up on you, and you had to, go away with your tail between your legs, but you had to learn. But it's now we're benefiting from
Right.
your hardships, not, no offense, but we
No, no,
are,
that's what I want
put it
it to
out
be.
there, but we learn from what has happened to you, of what not to do. I always will say that, that's kind of the best thing, is watching people ahead of you. I know I have older sisters, and so when they were parents, I would watch what they did and then go, okay, no, I'm never doing that. You know what I mean? So I learn
Right.
from what's ahead of me, so that I won't make those same mistakes or fall, have pitfalls like maybe they had to, struggle through. And
Well,
so
I
you
feel
do
like
that.
that's becomes the next level of the responsibility, is like, you've gotten here now, share that wisdom to be able to give back and help. And I'm
Yes.
always looking back. Like, my first book was like writing to the younger me at 17, what I wish
That's a
I would have
good.
had
That's actually
someone
really
tell me.
good.
And then this is like having your business and your company. And I want people reading it to be a level higher than where I am quicker, from like being able to do these things. And oh crap, that was stupid that you did there, Mark. I'll make sure not to do it that way.
Yeah, no,
And
I'm not doing that.
and those things you don't
Exactly.
even know about till they happen a lot of the time too. So
Oh, it's so true. I mean, again, you just can't even understand what's coming at you. And then when you read some of these other books, you'll go, oh my God, I never thought about that. I was just about to make the same,
right.
decision. And so yours is kind of cool like that, where it's a fast read, it's easy, but it's extremely raw and relatable. And that's what I think is really going to be a huge connection for anybody listening who is in this game along with you, where we, decided we need something different. And again, it's not just about entrepreneurship, because it's how to be the best at what you do, and what
Right.
I always call intrapreneurship. Even at a corporate job, how do you get to that place in your corporate job where you feel
Totally.
fulfilled, where you feel like you're doing your life's work, you're doing what you were supposed to be doing on this earth, and you're doing it the best you can. That's fulfilling in and of itself.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. I need to get a clip of that recording and add that to the book. You just nailed it. But no, it's so true. And it is. There's so many different levels of it, and just
Mhm.
learning through it. And at one point it was 265 pages, by the way. The fact that it ended up at 118 was, it's way harder to make it shorter. And we went
Yeah.
through all these development. That's for the 3 year. And it was
Culmination.
way, I'm like, no, we want to, and it's like, wait, the more we can quickly like give them what they need, get the principle, try to trim this out. It was actually a lot harder to do
That's
that
very
because
hard
I'm
to
great
do.
at rambling on, and I can do audio and have it like,
I'm
let's
a
just have
rambler. Look
this.
how long we're talking right here. I'm a rambler. I do too. I mean, I cover all the details. I get all nuanced with everything. So I'm a rambler. And when I write, I am an overwriter for
Right.
sure.
That's where you need it. That's where a team helps. You all
Yeah.
work with
Yes,
each other.
exactly.
And
Never been good at the editing part. I'm always just like a brain dump. So
right.
I can see that that's probably where you started. You're just brain dumping for our benefit, and totally appreciate that because you're kind of blazing the trail for some of us out here and wanting to do a lot of the same things that you're doing, but you're just like so far out ahead of us. So I appreciate that you're willing to teach us and tell us the pitfalls and share what works and what doesn't work, and you're giving back, and that's going to come back towards you again because that energy of giving, you give, you get what you give. So you're going to have that great energy coming back towards you, and I'm very pleased to
Oh,
know
thank
that,
you.
knowing how God works and how the universe works. That's how it works. So
100%.
again, and you agreeing to come on my podcast today and sharing your story is huge for me. So thank you so much. Like I said, I'm going to be taking copious notes. And by the way, everyone, I'm going to be writing out our big ideas and our big takeaways in the show notes, just so you kind of have like the quotable quotes and the things that I know are big chunks of wisdom that will probably resonate with you too. So I will make sure to order all of that together so you can look. And please, by all means, you will thank yourself for seeking out this book that he's about to launch in September. It's on pre-order right now. Could you tell us one more time where to find you and where to find your book, please, before we wrap this up?
Oh, sure. It's on Amazon. The easiest way, just my name,
Mm-hmm.
Mark, M-A-R-K, Minard,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Minard.net.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have everything there on my webpage, all my social media, all that good stuff, the book, the podcast. I have it all in one place now. So
Good.
that's the easiest way to do
And
it.
kept it streamlined. Easy peasy. Good. Well, I appreciate that. And again, of course, I will put that in the show notes as well, and any links to that to get this party started. And
Cool.
thank you so much. And I know that you're still recording the book, so I have overstayed my welcome on this podcast with you. So thank you so much for giving it the time. And I wish you the best of luck with this book. It's going to be huge for a lot of people like me, and for the rest of your career and everything you are doing and going to be doing that you don't even know you're going to be doing. I wish you the best of luck with all of that. And thank you again for being kind to come on here.
Oh, thank you, Karen, and all the amazing listeners. It's been an honor.
All right, great. Well, then I'll probably be crossing paths with you again here. So maybe we'll do a part 2, even though this has been a long part 1, once the book gets going, and we'll see what unfolds from there. All right.
Sounds awesome.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Mark, and have a great rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
Thanks.